So our work group, the WSC model, is part of the larger local school wellness policy collaborative. The mission of the collaborative is to be a catalyst for school communities and stakeholders to implement highly effective local school wellness policies in California schools to support student health and academic achievement. My name is Alyssa McClelland, and I am the co-chair of the WSC Domain along with Miriam, and we are joined by our WSC members and our wonderful student collaborators today. We have a packed agenda. Please take a look at the link in the chat box to access the meeting agenda that includes the contact information of presenters and resource links. We encourage you to add your comments and questions to the chat through today's presentation. It's my pleasure to introduce our facilitator for today's webinar, Ariana Robinson.
Good morning. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Ariana Robinson. I am a student in Placer County and a Fuel Up to Play 60 State Ambassador. Here are our learning objectives. We will review the WSC model. We will recognize the importance of using WSC to maximize students' health and achievement. Explore WSC components such as health education, physical education, and activity in social and emotional climate with an emphasis on cannabis use prevention. We will also share a few helpful resources at the end. Before we dive into the WSC model, let's review some housekeeping. We only have an hour with you and we want to maximize our time, so feel free to type your questions into the chat and our moderator will pull out questions. If we don't get to all of your questions, no worries. We'll be providing you with each presenter's contact information so you can follow up. For our first presenter, we have Miriam Shayeg from Los Angeles County Office of Education and co-chair of the local school wellness policy WSC Domain.
Thank you so much, Ariana. Good morning, everyone. We're so thrilled to have one of our student collaborators facilitating today's meeting. As Ari mentioned, my name is Miriam Shayek, and I'm the Nutrition and Wellness Coordinator at the Los Angeles County Office of Education. We are so pleased that so many of you have joined us today. I'm going to provide a brief overview of the whole school, whole community, whole child, or WSC model, and discuss the importance of using the WSC framework to maximize student health and achievement. Many of the longstanding health and education inequities that have been exacerbated by coronavirus pandemic have disproportionately affected many of our low-income students and families. We all know that many students, families, and our colleagues experience a great deal of hardship during the school closures. We all had to approach our work differently to address student health and academic needs during COVID. And moving forward, our school communities are going to require an exceptional level of collaboration and coordination to address the barriers to learning. The local school wellness policies provide an untapped tool for addressing barriers that significantly affect the health and psychosocial determinants of attendance and learning. This is why it's more critical than ever before to prioritize the health and wellness policies and practices to ensure a whole child approach to education, especially since so many of our students and families have experienced loss, economic and health challenges, and a great deal of uncertainty during COVID. There's so much work to be done in this area. But for today, we're going to focus on the WSC model and how this plays a critical role in addressing the gaps in student health, learning, and achievement. This WSC model, this was developed by ASCD and CDC as a framework for addressing health in schools in response to the call for a greater alignment between education and health to improve the physical, mental, social, emotional, and behavioral health needs of students. When we look at the WSC model, you notice the whole child in the middle. And you see the 5 tenets surrounding the child as the outcomes that we are all working towards, regardless of what our area of expertise is, or what programs or practices or policies we're working on. We want all of our children to be healthy, to be safe, engaged, supported, and challenged. The WSC model is student-centered and emphasizes the role of the community in supporting the school and the connections between health and academic achievement and the importance of evidence-based school policies and practices. So if you notice on the outer, the blue ring, it lists the 10 components which help us create a healthy school environment. And it's really important to look at each of these components through the lens of equity. So these 10 components include health education, and physical activity, nutrition, environment and services, health services, counseling, psychological and social services, social and emotional climate, physical environment, employee wellness, family engagement, and community involvement. So all of these components of wellness are connected and they support the academic achievement of students. So we are all familiar and have seen each of these components in action in our school communities, but it's really important to keep in mind that these components need to really be working in collaboration and consistently with one another as part of the work that we do every single day. So the content experts that we have presenting today, they will do a deeper dive in 3 of the 10 components and highlight resources and strategies that you can immediately apply to your work to support the whole child. Since our focus is with students at the center of our work, we're going to now hear from another wonderful student collaborator, Zachary. Zachary is a high school student at San Diego Unified School District, and he serves on the San Diego Unified School District Board as a student trustee, and he's the president of the California Student Board Member Association. Zachary's focus areas in education include closing the achievement gap, equitable decision-making, and health and wellness with an emphasis on mental health. We're going to have Zachary share his take on the WSC model with you.
My journey started more than 4 years ago when I was in 7th grade, and I recognized a strong disconnect between the students and the adults that are making the decisions on behalf of students. And I saw this disconnect and I recognized how much it alienated the communities around us. And I took action and I proposed the creation of a student advisory board. I didn't know it then, but 3 years later, I would actually be sworn in as the first student to ever serve on the Board of Education. And that's the role that I'm in today. And what I want to talk about today is what it means to center student voice and why we have to be so intentional about doing that. So I think our first thing that we focus on is recognizing bias. It's so important to understand that each one of us has our own different perspectives and subconscious ideas when we look at someone and when we understand something. And to recognize bias is to understand those different inequalities and those different structures that make up what we do and how we orient ourselves. And it's so important to recognize that when we're centering student voice, we need to hear from everyone. And we can't do what's convenient. We have to be sure that we recognize any potential issue that we may have internally and remove that and look at a larger picture. And doing that just means being cognizant of our own wording and being cognizant of our own thoughts specifically. And that's really our strongest way to recognize bias in a situation. Our second thing would be an open dialogue, allowing for pointed questions, but also giving students the space to just speak when they're frustrated and even when they're not frustrated. Centering student voice means that we're hearing from people and that we're having a discussion to be productive. And an open dialogue means that we're not just there for ourselves, but we're also there for the students and to give them an opportunity to hear. And when we want to center student voice, we have to ensure that everyone's heard. And those are the students that we can reach out to easily. And those are the students that we can not reach out to too easily. And I think that goes really good into the third point of meaningful engagement. What that describes is the idea of how we know we are hearing all students. And when we talk about centering student voice, does that mean centering the voice of students in ASB? That's one part of it, very important, but that's not all of it. We have to recognize that everyone's in a different place, but if we only hear from a specific subgroup, then we're not really getting a good representation of the whole population of students. So when we meaningfully engage, we recognize who are the players, who are the stakeholders that have control over these students, that these students are spending their time with, whether that be sports, whether that be ASB, or whether that be some other activity that goes on in school. It's critical that we find where these students are and we find ways to engage them to get a better understanding of what they need. Now, if we need a specific subgroup, that's one thing, but oftentimes when we want larger information, we go to what's convenient. And my challenge would be when we center student voice, we need to ensure that we don't only hear from the ones that are easiest to reach. It's a very simple fallacy, but it's one that often skews information. And now I would wrap it up and ask, how do we center student engagement for health and wellness, what we're here to talk about today for this wellness policy collaborative? And I think the first thing in talking about student engagement in health and wellness are recognizing a few things. And that first one would be valuing physical health to mental health. We know that mental health is a huge issue. All you have to do is look at the state legislature this year and look at the countless bills that have to do with student mental health, and to recognize that this is a real issue in our communities. And the reason we're taking action is because we see how mental health has been put behind physical health and not been prioritized. And our challenge is to make sure that we incorporate that in and recognize that a strong mental health leads to a more successful physical health. And those two are so importantly and cognizantly tied together. And in order for us to be successful, we need to value both of them. That second thing would be creating caring communities specifically. So when we create caring communities, we open up our discussions and we open up our systems to ensure that we hear from everyone and that we care about everyone. And we make sure that everyone feels that they're heard within these discussions and within the programs that we put out. So when we work on a wellness policy collaborative, it's critical that we care about the people that we want to hear from. When we try to get stakeholder engagement and it doesn't feel open to everyone, or it only feels open to certain subgroups, whether that be ethnicities, whether that be sports versus not sports, or whatever barrier it is, then we're not doing the best job we can. And when we create caring communities, we show and we prove to people through our actions that you have a place and you are a stakeholder that's important and that we value. And when we create these caring communities, we come out with a stronger product. We come out with a stronger wellness policy collaborative that helps students. And finally, emphasizing co-creation in anything we put out and really making clear that students had their mark on this. And when we do that, we prove and we walk the walk that students were not just people that gave some side information, but the students were critical partners in anything we put forward. And when students are critical partners in what we put forward, we know that we're going to be most successful. Because when we center students and we center student voice, we know that we get results. And when it relates to health and wellness, we know that when we put students at the center, our wellness policy collaboratives are going to be strongest. Students have a really strong insight to aspects that administrators don't see. And by definition, us being on campus and experiencing the effects of that system, we are in a much better place to speak on our issues and our concerns. And when we can be partners in creating a stronger system to support health and wellness, then we can center student voice properly and ensure that our education system runs the way that we want it to. Thank you.
Next up, we have Doreen Khatib, who is an administrator of health and wellness at the Orange County Department of Education, where she oversees health education, physical education, health services, wellness policy supports, and other prevention programs. Doreen is also the project director for the California Health Education Framework Rollout Project that brings professional learning and resources to educators across the state.
Thank you so much, Ariana. I don't know how I got the short end of the stick when I get to follow Zachary, but I guess I have to. So I am super excited to share a little bit with you all about health education and some of the work and the supports that are currently available around this content area, around this WSC component. And I'm really excited, actually, that I feel like Zachary really set it up for me in regards to putting students at the center. And really, when we look at the component of health education, it very much is about engaging teachers and educators to engage students, but it's also to create that level of awareness, to create this level of meaningful engagement so that they could actually have an opportunity to express their interest outside of the classroom. So it's really all about connecting them from the classroom to their campus, to their communities, and not just staying at that level. The WSC model is really all about health and learning coming together. And we have all seen the research. There's so much evidence to demonstrate that students need to be healthy to learn. If we want them to achieve academically, we have to make sure that they are healthy, but they also need to learn how to be healthy, what it means to be healthy, and what services and supports are available to them for them to be healthy. And that's where health education could really play a very important foundational role. Health education, comprehensive health education, it's not a new concept. It's a content area, just like English language arts, mathematics, visual performing arts, physical education. It's really about ensuring that our students have the knowledge and the skills. And that's a big shift in health education. It's always been like, let's make sure kids know, students need to know, they should do this, stop doing this, don't do that. And instead of really focusing on content, now the fact that you could pull a phone out anywhere and really look up whatever it is that you want to know more about, the emphasis here is ensuring that we're building their skills. And that's where the health education content standards are really built on. That's what their focus is really all about. So we have standards for all content areas. In health education, the standards are what we want students to know across the grade bands, across the grade spans. And this is just a quick look at what those standards actually are. The overarching standards, if you look at the first one, essential health concepts, that's the information that we want students to know. Yeah, we still want them to know stuff that hasn't gone away, right? That's still really important. But the emphasis here, if you look at standards 2 through 8, that's really all about the skills that we want them to not just gain, but actually get to practice on campus, at home, and in their community. So we want them to analyze what is influencing their health decisions, internal influences, external influences. Where are they getting their information? Is that a legit source of information? Should you question that? Who said that? What does that mean? What is the science to back that up? Interpersonal communication. Oh my goodness, that is everything from collaboration to refusal skills to negotiation skills. That is a really huge piece of health education, of course. And then decision making, goal setting, both of which are also social emotional learning competencies. The practicing health enhancing behaviors is actually building learning opportunities where students get to engage, they get to be out in their community. Things like what Zachary was saying, meaningful engagement where everybody has an opportunity, not just the ASB kids, not just students who participate in certain activities, having everyone play that role. And then my favorite is health promotion. Oops, did I say I have a favorite standard? I'm slightly biased, but health promotion is the advocacy piece. It's really all about allowing students the opportunity to advocate for themselves, for their families, and for their community. And that's where I feel like health education does a really great job of supporting other components of the WSC model and giving that opportunity for students to interact with their community as well. So ultimately, the standards are all about health literacy. We want students to be health literate. We want them to be critical thinkers. We want them to be problem solvers. We want them to be self-directed. We want them to be effective communicators and responsible and productive. So if you look at this, these are really lifelong skills. These are transferable skills that can help support not just their physical health, but their mental, social, emotional, spiritual, financial. I mean, all of the dimensions of wellness are supported by these skills. So for health education, this is just a model we've been using to demonstrate that if you flip the standards on their head and you look at the essential concepts being on the bottom, so at minimum, we want students to have some information, absolutely. But it's really important that they get a chance to actually build their skills for them to advance the health literacy. So if you look at this model, health literacy goes up as they get a chance to practice these different skills and gain and be literate in these different skills. Comprehensive health education actually covers a lot of current initiatives that are either mandated or are in place across our state of California. So nutrition, physical activity, so a great connection to the local school wellness policy, growth, development, and sexual health, which ties to the mandated California Healthy Youth Act, which mandates sexual health education in middle and high school, injury prevention and safety, that's everything from violence prevention to healthy relationships to human trafficking, alcohol, tobacco, other drugs, mental, emotional, social health, personal and community health, which is everything from flossing your teeth to being a responsible passenger in a car, to public health policies and being engaged in regulations and policies at your local level. So again, very, very comprehensive. And I want to kind of wrap by making sure that you are all aware of a really great resource that we have built. Ariana, when she introduced me, she mentioned about the California Health Education Framework Rollout Project. Our standards tell teachers what they should be teaching, right? These are the skills that we want to build with students. And then the framework that just came out, was just adopted in May of 2019, tells educators how to teach the standards, gives them ideas and resources, and really updates health information. As we know, health is a science, so it's always changing. So because we have a new framework, we got a chance to roll it out. So we are currently doing that with county offices across the state. And I just want to show you a little bit of how we've pulled a lot of the resources in the framework and a lot of the great resources that are available to us. And we've been able to populate this website that is still in progress and will continuously be updated. This is the link to the current version of the framework. The publication is being finalized, so soon it'll have a fancy cover here. You can learn a little bit more about the health ed standards here. I want to emphasize that we have created online courses that are completely open access and available to anyone across the state. There's no login or password, so you just click and learn a little bit more about health education. They're completely self-paced and self-directed, and they focus on an overview of what health education is about and how the framework is supporting health education, as well as a closer, deeper dive into the 6 health education content areas. There's additional professional learning opportunities here. I won't scroll too much or too fast so that you guys don't get dizzy and pass out on me on your laptops. I do want to emphasize that we have educator tabs depending on the grade band or the grade level that you teach. So let's say I'm a middle school teacher or I'm a after school educator that supports middle school students. I could click on 7 through 8 and I could look at resources for each of the content areas in health education. Also, we've created these tools and resources that walk educators through how to teach skills. So, okay, yeah, I get it. Decision making is super important. How do I do that again? How do I walk students through teaching decision making? So these are some really great tools and resources that are available. We created skill posters that are student facing, where the students could follow along in regards to the cues and the steps to build their skills. There are some model learning activities that are universally designed, that connect to universally designed, and they connect to SEL competencies. And then last but not least, I want to emphasize that you could click on each content area and it'll give you additional resources and supports in the classroom. So just highlighting a couple of tabs, please come back and check it out. There are great tools and resources for administrators. We've also created some modules, professional learning modules for them. And we're working on the family and community tab to really also support other partners in health education. And with that, I just really want to emphasize, although health education is one component, it's teaching kids and students of all ages really about how they could utilize and engage in health-related services, how they could contribute to their environment, their overall wellness environment, how they could seek counseling, psychological, social services. There's a big component in health education about connecting with the community. There's a big piece on how families and family engagement is crucial. So I just really want to end by emphasizing that although it's one component, it's really the big piece here is interacting with other components. And together, that's really that comprehensive approach to meeting the needs of the whole child. I'm going to stop talking. And I know if there are questions, they're coming through the chat. So with that, we'll pause and hand it over to the next component. And the next component we're going to focus on is physical education and physical activity. And I'm going to pass it over to Isabel. Isabel is a student with Riverside County, and she is also another Fuel Up to Play 60 state ambassador. So Isabel, all yours.
Hi, my name is Isabel Martinez. I'm a 7th grade student in Riverside County, and I have been active in Food Play 60 program for 2 years. This year, I'm one of the state ambassadors. Today, I will be talking about the importance of physical education and physical activity. Now more than ever during COVID, it is much harder to focus on our health. Distance learning does not always allow for PE time. Physical education teaches us ways to have a healthy lifestyle. During class, we are not only getting active and physically fit, we are learning about healthy eating, proper nutrition, and working towards our goal of 60 minutes of physical activity per day. It helps inform students like me how to fuel our bodies. Without PE, it would be much harder to know what is healthy for us and why physical education is important. I have had many role models in my life, encouraging me to stay active and work towards my goal of being in the WNBA. It's not always all about basketball. It's also about being healthy with the foods I eat and activities I choose. In my school and community, I like to encourage my peers to do the same. If I can leave you with one thought, please make daily time for PE a priority. I would like to introduce Michelle Tabor, the Physical Activity Manager with CalFresh Healthy Living, University of California. She has great resources to share with you.
Thank you, Isabel. That's really inspiring, and I like that last point. And hopefully some of these examples I'm going to be sharing with everybody today will continue to reinforce that point that PE and physical activity is so important. So what I'm sharing here with you is how physical education and physical activity are linked to all the other 9 components of the WSC model. I'm only going to highlight 2 of these for sake of time: the employee wellness and social emotional climate. So take a look at employee wellness, which you'll see in yellow. So when school staff are engaged in healthy behaviors, they act as role models, of course, to their students and to those around them. So administrators can assist by instituting policies such as time set aside in the daily classroom to have physical activity breaks, and giving teachers permission during their day to actually do this can improve productivity and overall health for everyone. And then as a result, absenteeism is decreased. And who doesn't like that as an administrator? Now I want you to take a look at this social emotional climate in blue. PE and classroom physical activity reinforce the 5 social emotional learning competencies, which promote cooperation, teamwork, and guide students in being positive role models for their peers and families. In addition, healthy behaviors are encouraged and supported, creating a safe learning environment. So now I'd like to share 2 successful physical education and physical activity strategies that CalFresh Healthy Living UC has implemented and adapted into the virtual environment that integrate the 2 WSC components that we just discussed, the employee wellness and social emotional climate, along with the other WSC components. So the first strategy was the creation of virtual physical activity videos. So during COVID-19, most schools in California shut down and started to teach remotely. So our staff recognized that teachers and students needed alternative ways to stay physically active and offer opportunities to get out of their chairs and move, including for teachers. So we started to create these 5 to 10 minute physical activity break videos. We have videos for youth that learn about and explore nearby parks when moving, which teachers can use to tie into their classroom subjects. We also have physical activity breaks for adults in both English and Spanish that demonstrate how to use household items such as canned foods as weights. So you could see that in the photo. These videos also provide opportunities to promote the benefits of classroom-based physical activity to parents, students, and teachers that go beyond the physical benefits, such as enhances on on-task behavior, improves concentration, improves academic performance, and increases motivation and engagement. So school staff and parents also benefit in many ways as they participate and role model in active lifestyle. We are continuing to create these videos as requests keep coming in from teachers, parents, students, and some of you. In addition, we saw a need to create catch lesson demonstration videos, which you can see on the right, for our classroom teachers who are also tasked with facilitating PE in their school. CATCH stands for Coordinated Approach to Child Health, and it's an evidence-based curriculum that promotes physical activity and healthy food choices for school-age children and their families. So the CATCH program, something we love about it is it fully integrates the WSC model that we are discussing today. The purpose of these videos is to provide those teachers that we've trained in CATCH some virtual support in leading PE lessons that we would normally be providing in person to these staff. And our goal is to continue to promote the importance of maintaining PE and movement throughout the school day by providing these video resources that we hope and help teachers overcome common challenges during the pandemic, such as the physical distancing and virtual learning. Another successful strategy that I thought would be interesting to share with all of you for physical activity PE is our youth engagement initiatives. So our staff in Imperial County, which will be highlighted on the left, trained and certified 55 Southwest high school students in CATCH PE curriculum last year. The students were enrolled in a sports medicine class that collaborates with our team in Imperial County to empower youth leaders in nutrition education, physical activity, and community engagement through YPAR, or Youth Participatory Action Research. And this is all in order to promote policy systems and environmental change. It also provides leadership opportunities through our Teens as Teacher virtual workshops. The high school students were trained in CATCH PE with the intention to facilitate the PE lessons to younger elementary schools. But then COVID happened, so that prevented them from moving forward. Instead, though, these students created physical activity videos, much like I discussed previously, that the teachers can use with their students and peers during virtual learning. Now on the right, you'll see a similar model in Santa Barbara where a Santa Maria High School PE teacher developed a student PE ambassador program that trains high school students in PE instructions and provides opportunities for them to conduct weekly PE lessons to this nearby elementary school. The high school students are learning career development skills, and many decide whether they want to go into a career of education or physical activity through this program. The PE Ambassador Program has been around for over 10 years. And I heard many of the graduates went on to become PE teachers or classroom teachers based on this course. So our SLO and Santa Barbara staff conducted annual CATCH PE trainings to these high schoolers, and which they would then go and use this CATCH PE curriculum to implement it with the elementary school students. And when I met with some of these elementary school teachers in person, one thing that really stood out to me was that they expressed that students were only receiving physical education or PE 1 to 2 days per week before this student ambassador program was created. And now students are receiving PE most days of the week. So as the uncertainty of when and how students will return to in-person learning continues, unfortunately, our goal is to ensure that our teachers have the resources that they need to easily incorporate PE and physical activity into whatever learning environment they find themselves in, because both are essential and are very, very important to our students' health and academic achievement. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat or you can email me directly. Next, we're going to be moving over to the important subject of social emotional climate. I'm going to pass it back to Ariana. She has been an active participant helping our local school wellness policy collaborative Ari is committed to changing the negative stigma associated with having open dialogue about mental health and social justice. Take it away, Ari.
Hello, as I mentioned, I'm a student in Placer County. This component of the WSC model is especially important to me because I have seen the impacts of the pandemic and social injustice on my peers. As if navigating the COVID pandemic wasn't hard enough, the added pressure of remote learning, the tension and hostility in our nation and local communities has been an all-time high. I have heard many kids talk about suicide, and more peers than ever turn to drugs, such as weed and nicotine. Kids are hurting, not just in their academics, but emotionally. We need resources and safe outlets to express our needs. Our next presenter has a few of these resources to share. Jessica Huang at the California Department of Public Health.
All right, thank you so much to Ariana for that wonderful introduction, and thank you so much for providing your own personal experience. So today I'll be talking to you all about youth cannabis prevention. So first of all, I wanted to provide everyone with a background regarding our department as well as our branch. So I'm from the California Department of Public Health, the Substance and Addiction Prevention Branch. So our branch aims to reduce individual, social, and environmental harm from addiction and substance use, and this is done via research-driven prevention, education, and treatment. So our branch is relatively new. We were founded last year in July of 2020. So our branch's work not only addresses cannabis, we also do work around overdose as well as problem gambling. So our cannabis program is built around several different components. So the first being surveillance and research, the second a media and social marketing campaign, which we're going to begin starting work on pretty soon. So we're very excited about that. Health education and policy system and environmental approaches, as well as community interventions, engagement, and training / technical assistance. All right, so I wanted to provide you all with some information regarding youth and cannabis. So cannabis use among youth, including products with high concentrations of THC, so THC is the chemical that is found in cannabis, have health effects on the developing brain. Cannabis use among youth is associated with an increase in risk for mental health problems, and that includes depression, as well as an increased risk of suicide. Youth who use cannabis may also experience poor academic performance, especially among those who begin using cannabis at a young age. And these negative effects may continue into adulthood among youth who use cannabis. All right, so now I'm going to go into providing you all with some data. So this graph shows the past 30-day marijuana use among California high school students, both in 2016 and 2018. So you can see that from 2016 to 2018, the percentage remained relatively stable. So recreational cannabis is legal for adults 21 and older. And cannabis is the most commonly used drug among California youth. So we can see here that in 2018, 14.7% of California high school students used marijuana within the past 30 days. In addition to the data shown here, in 2018, 31.4% of California high school students reported having ever used cannabis. Okay, so now we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the data and look at the data by race and ethnicity. So as I mentioned on the previous slide, 14.7% of high school students used cannabis in 2018. So I'm going to kind of use that as a benchmark here as we look at the percentages by race ethnicity. So you can see that for American Indian and Alaska Native, it was at 19%. In 2018. Similarly, for Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander, in 2018, it was at 19.6%. For Black, it was at 17.4% in 2018. And then for white, it was at 16.7%. Okay, so the last graph we have here shows the breakdown by gender. So if we take a look at male California high school students, we can see that the percentage dropped slightly from 2016 to 2018. So in 2018, 13.8% of male high school students used marijuana. For females, that percentage between 2016 and 2018 remained relatively stable. So in 2018, 13.3% of female California high school students used marijuana. So what's interesting to note on this graph is you'll see that for the students who identified in another way or declined to answer, we can see that in 2018, those percentages were high. So at 23.6% and 25.3% respectively. And I do want to mention that for 2016, there is no data included there because male and female were the only gender answer options. Yeah, so that's information regarding gender. All right, so now I'm going to talk and move into speaking about the WSC model. I'm specifically talking about the social and emotional climate component, as well as and that relationship to substance use, which includes cannabis. So I kind of want to circle back and mention kind of what Zachary had talked about mental health being extremely important, and Ari also alluding to that as well. Mental health, especially during our current climate, during the COVID-19 pandemic, is extremely important. And, students have had to adapt not only in, academically, but within their personal lives. And within the family, and the families and communities have a large impact on students. So, Ari had mentioned, that students have turned to drugs, to substance use during this time. And that really shows the emphasis that needs to be placed on, substance use and, its relationship with the social and emotional climate. But I also want to emphasize that substance use is multifaceted and definitely not limited to just the social and emotional climate of the WSC model, but it also encompasses health education, community involvement is very important. The school setting and community help foster and support healthy choices among youth. Family engagement is extremely important. Families play a large role in prevention and the fostering of healthy behaviors, and then also the physical environment. So this really stresses the importance of including substance use in local school wellness policies, and also providing education to students, to parents, to mentors, to school administrators and educators about substance use. So on the next couple slides, I'll provide you all with some resources to help you do so. Okay, so the first link is to the California Department of Public Health Let's Talk Cannabis website. So there's a screenshot on the right-hand side of the slide. You can see a screenshot of the Let's Talk Cannabis website. So on this website, there's information regarding what's legal. There's information for youth, for parents and mentors, information regarding responsible use. So you'll see that there are various different YouTube videos. There are frequently asked questions, as well as fact sheets that can be utilized as resources. So I also provided a link to our parents and mentors fact sheet and youth fact sheet. And then on the right-hand side of the slide, you'll see screenshots from our current fact sheets. So these are not yet available on the website, but they are forthcoming and will be available on the website very soon. And then also I wanted to mention that, our program is very new and we are working to develop new resources. So I encourage you to continually check our website, and we'll also be sure to keep the collaborative updated with any resources that may become available, so that way you will all be able to access updated resources as they become available. There's also a link here to our substance and addiction prevention branch website. So on that website, there's information regarding our other programs, such as our overdose prevention initiative, as well as our problem gambling program. So I encourage everyone to take a look at that. There's also a link to the Department of Healthcare Services as well. Department of Healthcare Services Youth Forward. So that specific program awards funding to community-based organizations that help foster youth activism, mentoring and peer support to prevent youth substance disorder. So I encourage everyone to take a look at the work of the Department of Healthcare Services. So on this slide, there's also additional resource links here. So there's links to the California Student Mental Health Implementation Guide. Stanford Medicine has an excellent toolkit on cannabis awareness and prevention. Washington State, as well as Colorado, has done a lot of work around youth cannabis prevention. So I've linked a toolkit here. And then the Colorado Department of Education also has resources for students and parents as well. Okay, and then here are some references for some information that I provided in previous slides. Right, and then here is my contact information. So I'd like to thank the collaborative for the opportunity to present today. So if any of you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Also, if you have any questions after the presentation, you'd like to learn more about youth cannabis, about our work, about our program, about other programs within the Substance and Addiction Prevention Branch, please feel free to reach out to me via email. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. This is Mariam again, and I really want to thank all of our student collaborators, Doreen and Michelle, for sharing many wonderful strategies and resources to support the implementation of the WSC model that we know is really important, especially right now as we are preparing to fully reopen our schools. We all know, for many of us who work directly with schools, we know that schools are one of the most effective settings to address the health of students. And even though the school closures presented many challenges for students and families and also staff, COVID has given us an opportunity to imagine what our school communities could look like, how they can be restructured to be more responsive to student needs. And the WSC framework can help us with establishing a collaborative systems approach to wellness. So we have a few additional resources to highlight and share with you that will support this WSC implementation in our school communities. So we mentioned earlier that the WSC model was developed by ASCD and CDC. So naturally, you're going to find many great resources that they offer. A few that I wanted to highlight: ASCD has a free whole child improvement tool that provides really quick results on the tenets and the various indicators where your school is doing well and where it might need a little bit more attention. For those of you who are involved with school wellness policies, you also may be familiar with the CDC School Health Index. That is another self-assessment tool that is free, and it offers a planning guide that is also aligned with the WSC model. And this enables your school community to identify strengths and weaknesses of health and wellness policies and programs, and support the action planning that is needed to address the various wellness priorities. The National Association of Chronic Disease Directors offers a great guide to the WSC implementation. We included a link to a webinar if you're interested to learn more about implementation strategies to use in your school communities. So please look for that for additional learning opportunities. And I also wanted to, of course, highlight our collaborative. We want to encourage you to check out the California Local School Wellness Policy Collaborative website. This is where you can access updated resources, resources. There's a newsletter that you can sign up for, that you can receive best practices and various events that may be happening across the state. We know that each school community has unique needs. They have their own set of needs, priorities. So we really want to encourage you to connect with us so we can help you identify the proper supports and resources that you need that would be most beneficial to your work. So we really encourage you to connect with us. Thank you so much. And I want to thank Alyssa, the co-chair of the WST Domain, and our WST Domain members who are so committed to improving student wellness and academic success. Not only are they content experts, but they're really passionate about their work, and they provide a wealth of knowledge and resources. So I encourage you to reach out to the collaborative again and let us know how we can better support your work. We have been meeting as part of the WST Domain on a monthly basis, and we are hoping to offer more learning opportunities for you moving forward with, focusing on the different components of the WSC model. So we're going to continue these efforts to support the implementation of the WSC in school communities across the state. And with that, we really want to thank all of the participants for joining us today. Again, the California Local School Wellness Collaborative, we do host the Winning at Wellness webinars on the third Tuesday of every other month to inspire school communities and stakeholders to implement highly effective local school wellness policies in schools to support student health and academic achievement. We invite you to join us in inspiring healthy school communities. Please share your stories with us. You can follow the conversation at Winning at Wellness and tag us in your post. And please do reach out to us and let us know how we can better be a resource to you and support your work. Because we know, as Ariana said, it takes a lot of heart, it takes commitment, it takes a lot of dedication. And so we all need to work collaboratively and really, prioritize, and put our students at the center of our work to make sure we're addressing their needs appropriately. So with that, I want to thank you all again for joining us. Please continue to use the chat if you have any questions, or if you want to share some resources with us. We would love to add that to the collaborative website. If you know of any resources that have worked really well for you and your work in implementing WSC, please share those resources and those stories with us as well.